Look, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak on this very important issue because, and first of all, I must declare an interest. I've been a ratepayer since I was 20 years of age, and I believe that I'm perfectly equipped to talk about rates, considering I've been paying them for a long period of time. And I'd be obviously representing the ratepayers of the county of Kerry, and they have indeed certainly an awful lot to say for how little they get back for the amount of rates that they pay and the increase that they've seen over the years, because of the simple fact these people are creating the employment that's keeping our small villages and our small towns and our bigger towns going. And then we have the bigger ratepayers, the hoteliers, for instance, that would have big areas and big hotels, but just because they're that much bigger, it doesn't mean that they're having an easy time or anything like that. They certainly are not. Because if you look at the tax that this government has put them under recently, I was so bitterly disappointed to see the increase in the VAT rate for our hotel and hospitality sector. And yes, it is true, as Deputy Collins has said. It is so true that this is having an awful negative effect on their businesses. These people were running on a tight enough shoestring as it was, because if you take their wages bill, take their insurance bills, which are spiralling out of control, and I want to again highlight how unfair it is, the fact that people who own nightclubs, dance halls, restaurants, public houses, shops, the massive increase in they have to pay for their public liability insurance because of predominantly bogus claims that are allowed to continue in this state, in which we've debated here before. We've seen government ministers sit idly, silenced. They were like they couldn't see no evil, they couldn't hear no evil, that they'd said nothing about the increase when it went from 9% to 13.5%. There was no need in the world for that increase. It was wrong, and I was so bitterly disappointed that it was allowed to come in, and it is going to have a more adverse effect on County Kerry, perhaps than any other county in the country. And these businesses are struggling, considering they're after coming out of one of the worst recessions ever, but they kept their doors opened. They continued to put investment. When I think of the hoteliers in County Kerry, whether it is small restaurants or bigger hotels or medium-sized hotels, many of them predominantly family-run, they're the ratepayers. They're collecting the tax that keep this government ticking, but they're forgotten about. They were sold down the river by this government when you increased the VAT and hiked it up without giving them a second thought. I also want to lend my support to the people that operate the food shops, the health food shops. This government, we had a minister that came out the other day with the nonsensical statement that he was going to improve his carbon footprint by stopping eating meat. For God's sake, a child wouldn't come out with it in the cradle, not to mind anything else. And it was an embarrassment to the Department of Agriculture. It was an embarrassment to the Taoiseach, who I know, of course, would have more sense than to come out with a silly statement like that. And it really upset our farmers. And to think that on one hand we had the Taoiseach, the leader of the government, coming out with this nonsensical statement, an attack on rural Ireland, an attack on every farmer that is a cattle inside in sheds, and they're trying to fatten them and get them ready for the factory or to move on and try and make a few pounds, and a few very small pounds at that. But so on one hand then you have the Taoiseach coming out with that statement, and at the same time then, if we want to talk about healthier living and healthier foods, we have people who operate great health food shops up and down the length and breadth of the country. Indeed, the county that I represent, we have many health food shops. We have the great Dan Horn of Horn's health food shops, who has a number of shops throughout Kerry and indeed even into Limerick, and other private individuals who operate very hard-working shops. And what have they seen happen? A massive increase from 0 to 23%. How in the name of God could anybody justify this? And think of the irony of it at a time when people are encouraged to eat healthier foods and to lead healthier lifestyles. What do? You come along and you tax them. You tax them out of existence. I mean, that was an awful and crazy. I raised it here last December with the Taoiseach. He said he knew nothing about it at the time, that it wasn't going to happen at all. And now it is going to happen. And I'm going to ask you hear, how can you tell these shopkeepers, small shopkeepers, who are our rate collectors, collecting tax for you, and at the same time you're telling them that you're going to increase their tax from 0 to 23%. I believe that's outrageous. In many of our small villages at present, we've seen the sad and absolute heartbreaking decline of our rural pubs. The fabric of our society is under attack from you, Minister, and your colleagues who supported you. Because when Fianna Fáil were sitting on their hands over here sound asleep and allowing it to happen, and while you and other people, well, some of the Fianna Fáil people, as was pointed out here already today, 11 of them actually voted for the draconian measures which have been such an attack on rural Ireland. So we are telling these publicans that you're stopping the people of going to their pubs, and you're telling them at the same time, well, we'll take your tax from whatever you will sell, if you will sell anything, and we'll also then continue to take your rates. It is 100% true to say that there should be a ban on collecting rates from public houses that are below a certain threshold of a turnover, because I'll tell you why: they can't pay it. They cannot pay it because they're making no money. I'm inside in public houses on a continuous basis, which I'm very glad to be allowed to do so, to meet people, constituents in pubs. I started it many, many years ago along with my late father, Jackie Healy-Rae, and it was such an enjoyment to go to public houses that were full, that were vibrant. They were the cornerstone of our communities. And indeed, many of those public houses where we used to pull out in front of before, where the lights were on and the doors were open and the fire was on in the corner, unfortunately, thanks to this government and others, they're now closed. You succeeded in shutting them down. And the very sad fact is that many more of them are going to shut down. And indeed, many more of our small shops are going to shut down. And what is this government doing for them? Absolutely nothing. But every way that you can nail them to the pillars of the cross, that is what you're doing. That's what you did here a number of weeks ago when you introduced the legislation, the road traffic legislation, where you attacked our rural pubs. And you're doing absolutely nothing to help them. They created employment, whether it was employment for themselves or for a neighbour or a family member, and now they're shut, or they're as good as shut. And I actually see it getting worse and worse. And it was pathetic to see a member of this House today, and he on our local radio station in Radio Kerry, and he trying to defend what he had done by sitting on his hands and allowing our publicans in Kerry to be attacked in such a way. And you know, it was actually sad to hear a person going on the radio, and the way I describe it is trying to defend the indefensible. Because if you're elected to represent your people in your county, you're elected to represent all of the people. And one of the first people that you have to try and help is people who create employment, whether they're the small shopkeepers, or whether they're the small publicans, or whether it is the post offices, or our hotels. They are the people who are collecting tax. They are the people who we want to keep in business. But unfortunately, they're getting nothing from this government. I'd ask you that the suggestion should be taken seriously of a hold up on certain publicans because of the fact that their turnover has decreased so much. I know that each local authority, and our local authority, Kerry County Council, is excellent and has always been very willing to listen to individual cases with regard to businesses that are struggling. But unfortunately at present, so many of them are struggling, they'll find it very hard to deal with the amount of them. And I think that this is so wrong at this critical time, and you seem to have no regard whatsoever for them, absolutely none. And the more time goes by, the more the point will have been proven. Over the Christmas time, it was shocking to see how little business was actually being conducted in rural pubs. Maybe that you didn't see it, people that are here in this city, maybe they didn't see it. But I know that we certainly saw it, whether it was in North Kerry, whether it was in South Kerry, West Kerry, East Kerry. Every small village has been desperately affected. And when the people aren't going out, and when they're not going out socialising, it has a knock-on effect. The taxi drivers, they don't have the business. The food outlets, the fast food outlets, they don't have the business. And it's a knock-on effect. If people aren't allowed to go out and socialise and enjoy themselves, and keeping people at home, it's detrimental to a local community. And we can all remember before, when more people were out socialising at night and at the weekends in particular, it brought life and it brought money to localities. And we don't have that now, thanks to this government and its policies of higher taxes, crippling rules and regulations, and continuously going after the same people, the easy touch. I'd ask this question of you, Minister. How could any young person today seriously consider starting up a small business, whether it would be buying or leasing or taking over a pub, buying, leasing, or trying to take on a small shop? How could they do it? Because the first day they'd put up a sign, the first day that they'd start, the whole lot of it be down on top of them. Revenue, the HSE, the tax, the rates, he'd be down on top of them. He'd go through them like a dose of salts until he'd leave them there on the side of the road with nothing. There's no encouragement whatsoever. And like this government has proven itself to be anti-rural beyond belief, anti-small business beyond belief. But the only thing about it is the people have a good memory and they'll remember it for it.
Thank you.